I think we're on. Okay, I had a teaching video. We're going to talk a little today. I really didn't want to because I've been really sick. And I was actually doing my roof again yesterday and doing like some audit jobs, motorcycle work. I want this first rollout to be to the Kohler Times. Last night I read the paper, and the only thing I could imagine is the Kohler Times has a racist thing against the white mayor, Joe McComb. Now, I'm going to be honest about this, because we covered the last few years some cases that took place, murders of a white judge by the name of Tom Greenwell, that national media organizations questioned whether it was a suicide or a murder, and it took place in a courthouse. Okay, now that's something that you think there should be light shown. Mr. Greenwell seemed to have not gone along with maybe things that were happening in this county for a long time. Whether it was a suicide or murder, I really don't know. Okay, then you had the Judge Benyalis thing that I covered, and it showed you plainly that the Kohler Times did all they could, front page coverage, to defend the maiming and injuring of people that Mr. Benyalis did, driving reckless, many cases, and the victims of Judge Benyalis and those car wrecks. The Kohler Times defended Mr. Benyalis, and some of them were maimed and all. All right, then the Kohler Times. Right now you have a judge by the name of Guy Williams, again, a white judge. Guy Williams is known, he's a veteran, and he's now stepped down from the bench. He's not going to run again. He has he's facing a felony charge. Judge Guy Williams facing a felony charge. Kohler Times did a whole thing on him, possible sexual harassment that he was involved in, and cases now. Just past week, he's going to go to trial in a month or two. And he's facing felony assault charges, assault with deadly weapon. Supposedly, he was running people off the road, pulled his gun out. Now, as I watched that, I noticed Mr. Williams was a judge who did not go along with a lot of the corruption, if you will. He was the one who made the famous case of the Rosas case. And after Mr. Rosas, the flesh bomb incident, I covered that, but it was a bad case, okay? And he recommended the defendant. He said, the only thing I could tell you is bring a civil suit, meaning what the city and the local DA did under Mr. Skirka and all. Okay, so the people and judges and leadership who are white, the Kohler Times, I've noticed, now what that they cover them in a way that they almost begin accusing them to the point of their decisions are going to lead to the murder of children and babies. What? That is your opinion page. I went all through the house. This is the opinion page for Tuesday, December 19th, 2017. I got your newspapers, Kohler Times, all over my house, and I was going like a madman looking for it. I'll hit on the request we make to the Kohler Times. Why don't you publicly tell the community what your salaries are? You have a tendency to contact Christian organizations in Corpus Christi. Old Brother Roloff had a long feud with the Kohler Times. And what you do is you believe that you are somehow, you serve a public service within this community as, quote, the fourth estate, meaning media. But yet you use your paper at times in a way that is personal, and you've allowed race, which is a shame, to enter into whether you're covering the death of a white judge by the name of Greenwell, whether it's the court proceedings of another white judge by the name of Guy Williams. But yet in cases like Mr. Manuel Benyalis, who had atrocities of severe injuries and road rage incidents and flying off the road, and you did front page coverage, I remember that, defending Mr. Benyalis' actions. So what you have shown now, I've mentioned this before, and so what we request, I notice the Caller Times, what they often do is they say, we contacted somebody and they didn't respond. And then I'll read the article, and what they mean was they sent them a Facebook message. I don't look at my Facebook messages myself. And that's kind of deceptive because they might have a case they're covering of whoever it is, former mayor Dan McQueen, and they'll say, we asked him. So today, this first video, I'm requesting that you make public the salaries of your employees. Have any of your employees, particularly at the Caller Times in this opinion piece, had any illegal collusion with Hispanic leadership in this community, which is fine, in order to, quote, do a hit piece on a white mayor by the name of Joe McComb? We request that, and if you don't answer by the last video, the last video will be the Caller Times refuses, because this is the contact I've just made right now. Just like when you send a Facebook thing to somebody and said, we sent them a message, a lot of people don't check Facebook. So by the last video, if you don't publicly say we've had no particular racism within our ranks, and we're not doing coverage as racists because we hate white people, if you do not do it, the last video will be Caller Times refuses to answer the question whether or not their opinion page, they were in collusion with La Raza, which was a Hispanic group that believes that the rise of a particular Hispanic culture should begin to take over. That is one of the opinions of La Raza. Now, why so mad? The changing of our North Shoreline Road, which I've discussed, a few years ago, the city, in a noble attempt to get more traffic downtown Corpus Christi. The reality of the way the city of Corpus Christi has grown over the past 15 years, 20 years, is the south side, which I live on the south side, the development of the city, like other cities, tended to go a certain area where there was room to grow and develop. So the south side of Corpus Christi became like the big main area. In a lot of cities in South Texas and other places, the downtown area, which was originally like the hub of a city, they kind of become run down sometimes because the activity, the shopping, the malls, the stores, maybe they've developed in another part of town. And that's what's happened in Corpus Christi, like in a lot of municipalities. But downtown Corpus Christi is very beautiful. I often attend the Cathedral Church, downtown Corpus Christi, and it's pretty. But they wanted to get traffic to go back in that area. So they did. They paid a lot of money, $1 million or whatever, for a study, for outside architects to come and to... So they made the big plan to reroute traffic. What they did was a mistake. And I think if you asked 90% of the populace of Corpus Christi, they would agree. Because even those who were open-minded towards it, I was, after they rerouted it and they opened up the new road, it's sort of like they destroyed a very beautiful ride where you would go North Shore, Shoreline Boulevard, which I've done videos there, and to be honest, any honest opinion. But the Caller Times, Mr. McComb is a new white mayor. And I noticed the Caller Times endorsed Nelda Martinez, the former mayor, who's Hispanic. And I noticed that they seem to show a racism towards Mr. McComb. They speak about any decisions in language. Now here's the editorial. It doesn't take the study underway instigated by Mayor Joe McComb. Mr. McComb wants to reopen they rerouted traffic on that road I discussed, and they put these ugly looking gates and barriers up. Just me driving the last year and seeing them, I said, what are they doing? It looks like a permanent construction zone. They ruined it. But the editorial is, this white mayor has instigated. What he found out was somebody without normal city management principles just went and put those gates up. And so he rightfully, when he became mayor, said, I want to find out who gave the decision to block off all that traffic on that road. Now, most of the population wants those gates open, but there are a few insiders that don't. And now what they're doing in this article is they're saying Mr. McComb instigated something. And because of his slight decision to temporarily open the gates, it's likely that people are going to be run over carrying their precious cargo, babies and baby strollers. So they're now putting in the opinion page this decision to open those gates. If a pedestrian is hit, now that those gates are going to be open because there's a park there, and they have babies and strollers, if perchance, which is tragic that in this city we have a lot of wrecks, deaths from vehicular hits, people hitting them with cars. Now the opinion page basically put McComb on notice. If a single pedestrian dies in a car wreck, and God forbid that a child dies, Mr. McComb, white mayor, it's your fault. That's what they're putting in here. It's a disgrace that they would do that. Now we go to, it's the outcome that can be used to fulfill the vision of Corpus Christi Bayfront whose time has passed, cruising along the seawall in a brand new 1968 Oldsmobile Cutlass with a 4-barrel carburetor. What they're doing now is mocking the white man. Just about anybody would love that road to go back to its normal, beautiful drive. I've had family come from New Jersey over the years. They love that ride. And they haven't been here in a while. But people that have come back, you can't do that beautiful ride. Coming in from the airport, going the longer route, going to Shoreline, it was a beautiful ride. They destroyed that. But what they're saying now is the white mayor has a vision of kids, and back in the happy days, Fonzie days, of just cruising their Oldsmobile along an open road. No, no. Why are you so discriminatory towards a white man? Why can't you just be honest and say the beauty of that road when it was opened was much nicer than the way it is now? But your racism shows in all of your coverage of Mr. McComb. The closing of the lanes nearest the seawall had its desired effect. People started coming to the bayfront in greater numbers because the traffic. McGee Beach, they give an opinion that the closing of the seawall and the putting up and blocking that road has really been a boon to that region, and that's false. I personally will tell you that people avoid the way the direction is in our downtown, a lot of one-way streets. I've done it multiple times because I'm going up the hill to the Corpus Christi Cathedral, which is the church right in that area. They have wrecked normal pedestrian driving through those regions. The way it is set up, anybody with common sense. But what they're showing you is if a white mayor just does a common sense thing, not a racist thing, not an anti-Mexican or Hispanic thing, if he simply says, it looks like it's not good the way it is, they mock him as living in the old white days. The old 1968 Oldsmobile white man, bigoted, he's got that view. You are so racist in your coverage of Mr. McComb, in your defense of Mr. Vinales. You defended him in your attacks of white judges. And then McComb says he wants to know which rogue city employee ordered the gates on Old Shoreline to stop. That employee deserves a medal and a raise. The real rogues at City Hall are the ones who failed. Now, Mr. McComb rightfully said, who put up the gates? That wasn't voted upon. And so some city employee with connections somehow, maybe Hispanic, said, let's put these gates up. Any mayor coming in with the majority of the population, both Hispanic and white of the community, who don't want those gates, would have the right to say, who put the gates up? What the Caller Times is saying is, now McComb is going after this so-called rogue, who we praise, if some rogue on his own city employee decided to make a decision that affected 360,000 people in the city of Corpus Christi, praise that rogue. You're such hypocrites, Colder Times. Why? Remember when Margie Rose, who is the wonderful city manager and black woman of Corpus Christi, when once again the city council had questions about certain things that they were going to do, about the water treatment and all these things, we had problems. The Colder Times did an entire thing saying, let the professionals, the people who know things, make the decisions. And right here, what you're doing is you're saying it's good government for a rogue employee on his own to make a particular decision to block off a road because he's a good man and he should get a medal. What a contradiction. No proper city that wants to govern properly would ever praise any rogue employee that decided on his own maybe to block off a portion of SPID. Of course you would not have that. Proper city government, that would have to go through the channels. And when McComb and others McComb, who is white, when he had some questions about rebuilding water treatment facilities, so forth, you said, Mr. McComb, you're a politician and you need to leave it up to the experts. Find one city management system anywhere in this country that allows one rogue employee to make a major decision to block off a beautiful road, and where that's a good and noble thing. The Colder Times says he should be praised. So let all the world know, if you want to come to Corpus Christi and you open up your business in a certain street, that the Colder Times will defend if a rogue employee blocks off your road in front of your business. And I'll be honest, a lot of businesses lost business over the years because they're doing road construction, staples of the streets, they blocked off entrances. But the Colder Times believes if you come to Corpus Christi, you want to relocate a huge international business to the port of Corpus Christi, some employee might just put a roadblock in front of your business. And you would go to the city and say, wait a minute, who put this up? And if the mayor and the commissioners say, we never gave any approval to put a roadblock to the road going to your business, the Colder Times will defend that rogue employee and say, yes, Corpus Christi is actually living in the 1968 Oldsmobile days. They themselves, the Colder Times, defends individual rogue employees to make major decisions. And this whole coverage of this, they're instigated. The mayor makes a legitimate decision. They say he instigated things. And it upset me to read it. Now, the opinion page from yesterday, then of course they have somebody who has a personal reason that he's going to also complain against Mr. McComb. Johnny Cotton is a retired Corpus Christi architect and a member of the Arts Center of Corpus Christi Board of Governors. Okay, the rerouting of these roads that they did is supposed to benefit certain attractions downtown Corpus, where you see me sometimes make video by the Lexington. One of them is the Arts Center, which is beautiful and all. Well, now they had him sort of like, and now it's another opinion. What this man says is the same thing, and he says if people get killed, so what they've thrown into it is any decision by Mr. McComb to reopen traffic, it says it's going to lead to the death and babies being run over. What a disgrace that you would pull that stunt and claim to be. So we're going to see today if you will publicly reveal, if the Colder Times will publicly reveal if they have had any, quote, collusion with rogue employees to run this city, and to say any white people, including a mayor who thinks he's going to use his rightful authority as a white man, if whether or not you believe that white people should not have any authority or make any executive decisions within the government of Corpus Christi. And though we'll talk about Dwayne Bavona, Tim Arcoletta, Nick Jimenez, Allison Orlick, and Tom Whitehouse Jr., of course, most of those names are Anglo. But you see that they form like, let's attack the white mayor. That's the only way. For you to have injected various editorials, and there was another one, City Council should suspend Old Shoreline study before someone gets injured, before someone gets killed. All of these opinion pieces on that page yesterday basically are saying, if Mr. McComb does what the populace wants, people will get killed, babies will get run over, and this white mayor is living in the old days. You are a disgrace that you did it that way. With the real legitimate problem of vehicular deaths in this city, and with your defense of a Hispanic judge by the name of Judge Manuel Benales, who had a reckless history of maiming citizens by illegally speeding 70 miles an hour, and the Collier Times defended Benales' record. They went out, and even though his victims were maimed, the Collier Times defended with a vengeance his right to drive. He's only doing 7 miles. I covered all that. All we can imagine is the Collier Times believes that a white mayor who they did not endorse, if he makes any decision that's in keeping with what the majority of the population of the city wants, they will then put him on notice. You will be responsible, because 3 opinion pieces said Mr. McComb and his right to do this as mayor, his right to find a rogue city employee who did that, who the Collier Times says he should be given a medal. And if perchance some woman pushing a baby in a stroller gets killed, we lay that at the foot of Joe McComb. What a disgrace. So, Collier Times, I'm asking you today, did you have any particular connections when you covered for Mr. Judge Manuel Benales? Did you have any particular connections with certain so-called elements in the city who are corrupt? When you joined teams against a white judge by the name of Guy Williams, who made decisions that went against the grain of corrupt elements within the city, and then now you went after him. Did you investigate one of the names of the people? I know that family. I'm familiar with that family. One of the names of the people that are accusing Mr. Williams, they're a long-time name here, and I knew them even from the Kingsville days. And he's claiming he set up that judge. He's claiming this came out recently. I can't share too much. This is the first one. But what we're requesting, what are you requesting, John? Are you going to actually finally make public the salaries of those names that I read the editorial board? Are you going to give us, the community, whether Hispanic, Black, Anglo, regardless, are you going to tell us how in the opinion page of your paper you had 3 separate ones and all basically said the actions of Mr. McComb are going to lead either to the murder of children in baby carriages? Will you publicly say, there are no connections we have with La Raza and the rise of the Hispanic race that are informing our opinions? Because I cannot believe you would write a piece like that to the citizens of Corpus Christi, questioning the right of a mayor to say what one employee set up barriers in a beautiful city that any honest person that would see those barriers would say it's terrible, take them down. And what city and what paper would say we praise rogue employees? So remember this, international corporations that want to relocate to Corpus Christi. The Collier Times is defending if one rogue employee decided to put up a barrier in front of your business and to reroute all the traffic away from your business, that in this city that can be done. But yet the same paper criticized questioning about Margie Rose and said these decisions should never be made by just simply political people or rogue employees. These should be made at an executive level, which I agree with. That employee that did that on his own, just take the gates down. But for you to interject that he'll be responsible for the death, now Mr. McComb's worried. God forbid that we have another vehicular death, which happens too much in this community. And if a baby is killed, I would not doubt that the Color Times would call for Mr. McComb himself to possibly face a felony. You just don't like white people. You just don't like white people. I'll tell you that. I could see that in all of your coverage. If Miss Nelda Martinez made any decision that was within her position as mayor, and you would go out, you would have never covered it that way. And this is fake news and fake media, and it's a disgrace that you did that. And so, this is the official contact. Caller Times, I'm officially asking you if you have made any decisions in your paper in collusion with the underground drug trade in this region, your connection with corruption within the court system. And if you do not answer, then the next one will be Caller Times refuses to answer whether or not they are covering local white Anglo politicians in connection and collusion with corruption that they have also seemed to cover in a different way in the past. And so that's it. We are asking this right now.